Hey guys, I'm Oblivion903 here once again, and this is episode 3 of my Flashback Friday series. In episode 1 I looked at Super Mario Bros. On the NES. In this episode I am looking at his main rival throughout the 1990s. No, it's not Bowser, it is in fact Sonic the Hedgehog. Sonic the Hedgehog was released back in 1991 as Sega's competitor to Super Mario Bros. The game itself started development in 1990 after Sega decided that they wanted a new mascot to replace the likes of Alex the Kid. After numerous designs and ideas ranging from a rabbit to a character that actually became Dr. Robotnik, they decided on Sonic. Sega decided on blue for the character because it was the colour of their logo and because blue is the colour of peace. Which they wanted as it gives a friendly feel to it, which Sonic is. He's a nice friendly little hedgehog, but he's still got a bit of an attitude. The game itself is a 2D side-scroller platform game, much like its competitor, but with a few subtle differences. The game is super fast compared to standard platform games, an idea that came about after the head of Sega spent a lot of time trying to complete the first level of Super Mario Bros. As quick as he can, like a lot of us probably did. And on that basis he came up with the idea that he wanted Sonic to have really fast gameplay. And that is how we ended up with the gameplay that we all know and love. The concept behind Sonic the Hedgehog is that an evil man called Dr. Robotnik, or Eggman as he's known in Japan, stole the 6 Chaos Emeralds and also trapped all these lovely little animal critters in metal prisons, and Sonic's got to try and get all the Chaos Emeralds back and save his little friends. And while I'm talking about the development of the game itself, here's a little fun fact that you may or may not know. You will have noticed that Sonic, when he is in the water for too long, he will drown. This is because when developing the game, Sega believed that Hedgehog couldn't swim, when in actual fact they can. So unfortunately, because of this little mistake, we have all had to endure those annoying times when a bubble hasn't popped up in time where you're underwater and you've ultimately drowned and lost a life. And also another thing that you may not have noticed, one that I myself did not notice until I did a bit of research in the making of this video, is that when Sega were designing new mascots, there was a character that, as I said earlier, was similar to Dr. Robotnik. One of the reasons that they didn't use him is because if you take a look at Robotnik, you'll notice that he's got a red outfit and he's got a moustache. Does that remind you of anyone? Now that I've looked at it, now that I've read that, he does have a resemblance to Mario actually. It might not be noticeable at first, but there is a few sort of subtle similarities there. Is that why he's ended up being chosen to be Sonic's arch enemy? Is Sega showing them doing battle with Nintendo and beating them every single time they come across each other? Who knows, that could be the reason why he's there. Back to the game now. After the release of Sonic the Hedgehog in 1991, it helped Sega gain a 65% market share against Nintendo, the first time since 1985 that Nintendo weren't the top dog in the gaming industry. Following the sudden newfound popularity, Sega released Sonic the Hedgehog 2 in 1992, followed closely in 1994 by both Sonic the Hedgehog 3 and Sonic & Knuckles. In Sonic the Hedgehog 2, the player could choose to be either Sonic or Tails, or if you were with another person you could play as both. This was the first time that the 2-player mode was introduced in Sonic, which was pretty cool compared to the Super Mario series, where in Super Mario Bros. Originally there was no difference between Mario and Luigi, they were both basically the same character, whereas in Sonic, Tails was completely different to Sonic himself. And in Sonic the Hedgehog 3, it followed Sonic and Tails once again, but there was a new enemy in town called Knuckles. However, in Sonic & Knuckles released later on in the year, Sonic and Knuckles do actually team together. Sonic 3 and Sonic & Knuckles were actually intended to be one game, but due to time constraints and the memory capacity of the cartridges, they were forced to be split into two. Sega did bring out this fantastic technology called lock-on technology, where you could put one cartridge on top of the other, and basically we put Sonic 3 and Sonic & Knuckles together, it created the full game. It was actually Sonic 3 and Knuckles. This could also be done with Sonic the Hedgehog 2, which allowed Knuckles to be a playable character in the game, and it did unlock a few things as well. However, this technology was only brought out purely so Sonic & Knuckles could become the game that it should be, because it actually never appeared in any other game. During the mid-1990s into the early 2000s, there was many more Sonic the Hedgehog games released, both part of the main series and spin-off games such as Sonic Spinball and Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine. Like Super Mario Bros., Sonic the Hedgehog series did venture into the 3D world a bit later on, but sadly in the early 2000s, after the success of the PlayStation and the newly released Xbox along with the N64 and later on the GameCube, Sega eventually pulled out of the console market altogether after the Dreamcast. Thankfully though, the Sonic series did not end. After they pulled out of the console market, Sega became a third-party developer for Nintendo, Sony and Microsoft. And although in the last years of the Sega Dreamcast and the few years following Sega's demise from the console market, the Sonic the Hedgehog games did go a little bit. Now there was a few gems in there, but overall since they became a third-party developer there has been more bad games than good. One game series that has actually shined is one that was very unlikely to happen in the 90s, and that is Mario and Sonic at the Olympics. This season Nintendo and Sega joined forces in an Olympic show-off. There's been many versions of the game released over the years. Basically when the Olympics is on, or the Winter Olympics, there's usually a Mario and Sonic game coming out around that time. And also a couple of games in recent years haven't been too bad. I personally quite like the Sonic Unleashed game, whereas the reviews were generally mixed. I thought it was fairly good. And Sonic Generations went back to its roots in a way like New Super Mario Bros. Wii and DS did, which was good. Anyway, after that brief history lesson, let's get back to the matter at hand, Sonic the Hedgehog. Since 1991 it has gone on to sell over 15 million copies, which, although not quite the figure of Super Mario Bros., is still a pretty impressive feat nonetheless. And over the years it's been ported and re-released many times on most of the Sega consoles to numerous Nintendo consoles such as the Game Boy, the GameCube, the DS, etc, etc. It's also made its way onto the PS2, the PS3, as well as the Xbox 360 and numerous others. This just shows the legacy and impact that this game has had over the years and continues to have. And on that note, that brings us to the conclusion of this episode of Flashback Friday. Based on what I've discussed in the video, it's clear to see why Sonic the Hedgehog deserves to be in this series. An absolute fantastic game, and one that is still hugely influential in the industry along with Super Mario Bros. I hope you've enjoyed it, and if you've learned something new about the series, that's great, or if it's maybe just spurred you on to have another go of it, that's absolutely fantastic. So if you haven't checked out any of the previous videos, you can in the links below, and also you can find them on YouTube if you do a little search. I hope you check out the next one, if it's already up by the time you're watching this video, which will be as of next week. The link will be in the description as well. So thanks for watching, and I hope to see you guys very soon. Until then, bye for now.